As I mentioned earlier, today is Youth Day at COP28, and we now welcome the new generation of clean energy advocates to the stage. Please welcome moderator Dr. Chris Kiefer from Decouple Media. And Paris Ortiz Wines, Stand Up for Nuclear from the USA. Tia Tuominen from Replanet from Finland. Will Shackel, founder of Nuclear for Australia. Grace Stank, Miss America and nuclear engineering student from the USA. Eduardo Ventafrida, founder of Giovanni Blue from Italy. Abubakar Sadiq Aliyu from Nigeria. And Elham Al-Nuami, senior nuclear fuel buyer from ENEC from the UAE.
Welcome, everybody. I think this is the first time that we're seeing all of the chairs full, which is both, we're hearing the terms opportunity and challenge in the same sentence a lot. As a moderator, that's exactly what this is. We have 50 minutes. I could spend 50 minutes with one of these individuals, all fascinating, really diverse group, and it's an honor to be up here amongst them. I myself, I think, joined David as well in feeling a little uncomfortable on the stage now as a youth. I think I've just kind of crested the hill on that. But again, it's exciting to step into that next generation and be inspired by this generation. So it's a great honor to introduce and get to share some of the amazing stories of folks up here. So we're going to work through one by one. Guys, I'm going to probably send you hand signals. We're going to have to keep things pretty peppy and short so that we can be dynamic and hear several times from each of you, hopefully. But Paris, I would like to start with you. You are with Stand Up for Nuclear. You're really part of a group that's coordinating us. I know for myself, there was a bit of a sort of seed planted by you and by the organization you work with, and that was a big part of getting my organization going in Canada, Canadians for Nuclear Energy. Again, this group is too diverse. It's almost clumsy to search for some common themes, but the phenomenon of youth advocacy is really new. It's frankly a little bit strange, but it's a really inspiring story. So Paris, could you give us like 2 or 3 attributes that unite this group of very diverse individuals and people on the stage?
Yeah, it'll be hard. I don't want to be limiting. But this movement is it was small, right? The space was very small of like who supported nuclear. So 2 to 3 attributes I found is that some people kind of stumble upon nuclear, whether it's through like a dinner conversation, but they are attracted to nuclear because either they care about climate or they're looking for solutions for existing problems within their energy system or within their societies. So they are looking for something, they care a lot, they want to make a difference, and I think within the climate movement, I came from an environmental studies background and I was like, we're just haters. We're gonna say no to everything, small is beautiful, and I actually wanted something very hopeful. So that would be the first one that I see. And the second one would be that there's people that are not afraid to think outside the box. I think some of us may have been unique growing up and like to look at other things that are not like hipster and like, you know, very popular. And I think people here are committed because they see it's a practical solution. It just makes sense and it fits within their vision of what kind of future they want to build for themselves.
Thank you, Paris. Again, this group is very diverse, and it's coming from a lot of contexts which are quite diverse. We have Will Shackel from a country where nuclear is banned. We have Abu Bakr from a country that is yet to embark on nuclear. We have Tea, and I butcher Finnish names, so Tea Tormalin is my attempt. Tea, you come from a country which I think is really leading the world in terms of attitudes towards nuclear energy. There is a Green Party in Finland, which you're a part of, and you've played an influential part in making pro-nuclear. Tell us a little bit about your context, your work, and I think the most pro-nuclear country in the world.
So hi everyone, I have a confession to make. I'm almost as old as Chris here, so I shouldn't be in this panel either. But I was a pro-nuclear environmentalist already over 20 years ago, so I know what it was like, and it was very lonely, so I was definitely the weird kid growing up. I belong to a global network called Replanet. We're an environmental organization. We're not just a pro-nuclear organization. Nuclear is just one part of it. And we have a youth campaign going on right now called Dear Greenpeace, which has young people from different countries calling Greenpeace to stop opposing nuclear. And Ia Astut, unfortunately, which is our young person leading the campaign, is not here in the COP anymore. She was already here for 2 weeks, so she needs to rest now. But we have young climate activists from different countries, and they're not all Replanet. So we have, in Finland, we have Ellen Ojala from Fridays for Future leading the campaign in Finland. And in Finland, the climate youth as a whole is pro-nuclear. Greenpeace in Finland is not against nuclear anymore, so we're not campaigning against Greenpeace in Finland. We're directing this message to the European Greenpeace and countries like Germany. And in Finland, we don't have anyone left to oppose nuclear. So when I started this journey, we had a Green Party opposing nuclear. We had the environmental movement opposing nuclear, like everywhere else. But then people started coming out saying maybe we should change our mind. The climate urgency became really imminent. And Finnish people have always been very practical people, and they've been able to change their mind quickly. And within the Greens, there was this group called Greens for Science and Technology, which I'm also a member of. And they started driving the change from within the Greens, saying that if we want to be the pro-science, pro-solutions, evidence-based party, we need to embrace nuclear, and that's exactly what happened in Finland. And I think because we talked to climate youth, they didn't come out first saying like, yes, we like nuclear. They were kind of hesitant, but we kept talking to them and sharing information. And finally, when Greta Thunberg said that nuclear shouldn't be in the EU taxonomy, Fridays for Future in Finland made a public statement saying that nuclear should be in the taxonomy. And so really, it's not profitable in Finland to campaign against nuclear anymore. Only 6% of the population is against nuclear in Finland. So it doesn't make sense.
Folks, she said the single digit 6% in Finland are anti-nuclear. I think, opinions are changing. That used to be 60% a lot of places around the world. So a really phenomenal turnaround. Finland, I think, is a real thought leader there. I know in some of my media appearances in Canada, I reference that. It really gets people's attention. So they have great perspectives. So much to learn from you. Will, bit of a different situation where you're coming from. I've been astounded by your work. Your gumption, I think, is a term I would use for you. You managed to score an impromptu walking interview with Emmanuel Macron and get spilled all over the front page of a lot of Australian media, with Macron urging Australia to drop its ban. Tell me a bit more about the context in which you are emerging from, and how you do it, man. I walked in on you in a sit-down interview with my energy minister in Ontario, and I was just like, Will's everywhere. What is going on here? So take it away, Will.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It's just such an honour to be here with everyone else from around the world. The situation in Australia is a very interesting one, as some people may be aware of. Australia is the only member of the G20 with a ban on nuclear energy, so we're not able to even consider it. And for me, someone who's concerned about the climate and energy crisis, seeing that Australia is not on track to reach our emissions targets, I'm just simply shocked that we wouldn't be considering one of the cleanest and most reliable technologies, that being nuclear energy. So I'm fighting really hard through my campaign, Nuclear for Australia, to first of all lift the ban and then open up the conversation about having a civil nuclear energy capacity here back in Australia. So in terms of, I guess, what keeps me going, the fact is that there are not many people who are vocally in support of nuclear energy in Australia, and that's despite a majority of Australians supporting nuclear energy. Poll after poll shows that an overwhelming majority of Australians not only support lifting the bans on nuclear energy, but in addition to that, having a civil nuclear energy capacity in Australia. The issue is, due to the political climate, not enough people are confident enough to come out in support of nuclear energy. But I think there is great hope. So I started the first youth-led campaign for nuclear energy in Australia, Nuclear for Australia, and we're seeing really over the course of this year, many people, both within politics, outside of politics, very well-respected Australians come out in support of nuclear energy. So I think the tide is turning. I have great optimism that one day Australia will have the option to go nuclear, and hopefully, if the conditions and the settings are right, that we may have civil nuclear power reactors in our country.
Amazing. You know, I think it's accurate to say that we live in the age of the influencer, and our next guest, I think, is a great model of that. You know, in terms of how people form their opinions, there's a lot of kind of tribal affiliations. Like if you are part of a certain sort of social clique, you have a whole bunch of unexamined beliefs that come in that package deal. And the role of some of the advocates up here, and Grace as well, I think is just so powerful in terms of helping people to kind of reevaluate some of those unexamined beliefs. Grace, one of the great challenges that the industry faces moving forward in terms of meeting this pledge is that of the human resources side of things. You are a passionate communicator. Tell us a little bit more about your work and what the real drive of it is, maybe with that theme of trying to match that challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, as Miss America, I have this unique opportunity to travel all across the world thanks to the nuclear industry, but also a lot of domestic travel within the United States. And primarily within the United States, it's a big focus on education within young people. For me personally, I tend to focus on young people, but it does expand beyond that, because as much as fun as it is to talk to kindergartners and politicians, it's fun to have stimulating conversations too. So, anyways, but truly, it is a ton of fun, because I'm a firm believer that in order to continue growing this industry, not only from a recruitment perspective, we need overwhelming public support. Not just like people being like, yeah, you know, I support nuclear. I want people like Will here that are like actively like, yo, what are we doing wrong here in our country, right? Like, this is what we need to be fighting for. So what I do as Miss America is really sort of just make nuclear exciting. You know, I think that there are so many occupations that kids today are going into and they're getting underpaid, overworked, but it's a cool place to work at. Well, nuclear, you know, I'd like to think we treat our employees good, right? CEOs in the room? I'm staring at all, yeah, okay? But truly, that's something that the nuclear industry is incredibly unique and has so much to offer. We just need to show how exciting our industry is. Make it exciting. It is awesome. We all know it. We see it every day. We live, laugh, love like stuff from Star Wars and Star Trek, and that's so cool. Let's show that to young people. Let's get them in this industry. It was so awesome. I saw your tweet about going to Baraka, and I think it's so incredible to watch young people get exposed to nuclear power and see it firsthand. To me, that was one of my favorite memories throughout my time in nuclear too, was my first time going to a power plant, and like literally a life-changing moment. Literally life-changing. I don't know a single person that got exposed to nuclear physically right in front of them and walked away and said, yeah, no, I'm good, still anti-nuclear. Everybody is there. Everybody is supporting it. It's about showing it, being open and honest, and communicating and educating from a place of respect.
I love that idea about, you know, youth going into rewarding work and needing to maybe sacrifice something for that. they don't need to do that in nuclear. You can go and fulfill a great mission and get paid well. We live in challenging times. We live in inflationary times. You know, in many places in the world, kids are not going to rise to the standards of their parents or be able to afford a home. We're talking a lot about a just transition. That's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about nuclear, is that it offers those kind of jobs that we romanticize from maybe the post-war boom, where you can raise a family, own a house, everything that a dignified life should include. So I really love that theme, and I have to say that's, again, one of my big motivations. Eduardo, I want to shift to a slightly different topic. Young people today are faced with a very serious challenge in the form of climate change. Some would call it an existential challenge. I think there's certainly a little bit of hyperbole in that discourse, certainly in terms of the world's ending in 7 years or whatever that timeline is. But nonetheless, I mean, there are very, very serious consequences to climate change, and one of the psychological responses to that is anxiety, is doom. Tell me a bit more, as quite a young person. I'm not sure who gets the cake for being the youngest person on this panel, but as a young person, what's it like to sort of be in that context, in that environment, and how do you personally deal with that, and what role does nuclear play in that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. I turned 18 last week, so maybe it's a direct competition between me and Will for who's the youngest. So I feel like we live in a world that is totally split in two. On one side, you have the old dinosaurs, climate change deniers, and on the other side, you have the fanatics that say, oh, we're all going to die in the next 30 years. And I feel like there's no time for that. Like, we really have to understand that, yes, climate change is a very complicated problem, okay? We have to work hard together for that. But the thing that if we are going to die in the next 30 years, as a person that is 18 years old, thinking about that is, maybe we need to concentrate and say, what if we need to depolarize the discussion, okay? Because on one side, as I said before, we have the climate change deniers, and on the other side, you have the people that think we're all going to die. But I really feel like, this thing that we are all going to die is really problematic, because I know, it's extremely complicated for me, because they asked me to talk about climate anxiety, and I'm very excited about talking about that, because I know people that committed suicide for this reason. And so I thought about a long time about what I could say, but it's very, very complicated. So excuse me if I'm panicking a little bit, but it's really, you can feel my emotion, because talking about it is so damn complicated. So, okay. What do we know? We know that we have, on one side, we have climate change, and this is a thing that we need to solve, okay? What if we say, we have to accept, sorry, it's very complicated. Can I drink a little bit of water?
No,
I'll go back to you, sorry.
No, absolutely, and we'll give you a break, and I see the emotion in you and the fact that you've lost someone in your social circle to this. Don't worry about the reaction that you're having right now. That is...
It's really complicated, this thing.
It's a very human reaction, so we'll come back to that. For me, when I think about, now as a father of a young child and not being a youth anymore, what is the antidote to something that is so disempowering as climate anxiety? Ultimately, it's education, it's empowerment. And I think, again, talking about the good jobs that are available, the ways that you can rise to the occasion, being here in the Emirates and seeing young people that are just so competent and that are meeting the challenges and doing something about it, instead of the kind of passive response that I think is so common in the West of kind of a tune-in, drop-out message. It's inspiring to be here, but we'll move on. Abu Bakr, I talked with Grace briefly about this theme of the Human Resources Challenge. I was speaking with someone from a Japanese delegation, and they were saying the fundamental choke point to reactivating their nuclear section is human resources, is the demographic challenge facing not only Japan, it might be a more extreme example, but around the world, the developed countries are facing a demographic collapse of young people. Combine that with nuclear sector, which It was shut down for, where are we at now, over 10 years, where young people saw no promising careers in it. That's a big problem. Africa is a very different context demographically. I think the youngest continent on the planet. A lot of hope and opportunity there for embarking nations. The human resources, it's not a challenge demographically, but I think it's a challenge in terms of people knowing what sort of careers are available, particularly as countries consider but have not yet embarked. So Abu Bakr, if you can address that theme from the African context, it would be an honor.
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, let me appreciate the diversity on the panel. And I think in terms of nuclear advocacy, that's what kept me going. You see young guys from different backgrounds, but then sometimes we've not even known each other, but then struggling for the same thing. It tells you that really there's something unique about that particular thing, in our case, pursuing nuclear energy. Well, before that question, I think one of the reasons we advocate for nuclear energy is simple in Africa. You see, back in 2021, I was writing my final examinations for high school. We call it secondary school back there. I had to stay back in school up to 6 p.m. to read. And then I have this friend, Ali, who sells vegetables for the locals. He has to travel, I think, 6 to 10 kilometers every morning to and fro to get his supplies. I also have a neighbor who sells food. She makes a profit of about 10,000 naira per day, but then she only have about 3,000 naira to herself. The basic reason for all these issues is lack of electricity. If there were access to electricity, I wouldn't have stayed back in school to read, because I might come back home, maybe in the night I would get up to read. And for Ali, if there is light, he could have get his supplies for 3 or maybe 1 week and then get them refrigerated so he doesn't have to struggle traveling every morning. And for the lady, the major reason she loses about 6,000 to 7,000 every day is because she dedicated that amount of money to gasoline that will be used in powering her generator to keep the business running. So, like I said, when you see us advocating for nuclear energy in Africa, the basic reason is electricity access. Of course, climate change is part of it, but to us, it's more than that. And even not only access to electricity. Personally, I see nuclear energy as a magic bullet. When it strikes, everything falls into place. You get electricity access, you get access to isotopes for medical applications. It tends to also scale up your technological know-how of the country. It does a lot for you. So when we see, for us in Africa, it's more than just climate change. It really means a lot for us. Now back to your question of skills. Yes, of course, Africa is the youngest continent with over 70% of the population. I think less than 30 or so. Especially in my country, Nigeria, where we have about 250 million. And 70% of that will give you, I think, nothing less than 150. So the human resource is there. I think it wouldn't be a problem for us to help in the cause of tripling the nuclear energy by 2050. But then the most important thing, going by my first story, is ourselves. We need that skills, that know-how, first of all, to cater for the continent. As you know, more than 600 million people don't have access to electricity. That's about 43% of the continent doesn't have access to electricity at all. So I think if we say, let's look at ourselves first, I think we are not being selfish. But then with the number of population, I think we can do both. We can cater for ourselves and then help elsewhere. Of course, when it comes to nuclear science and technology, we have a lot of passionate people. I'm here with some of them, and back home we have a lot of people who are ready and are up to the task. But one major challenge is when it comes to skills in Africa is looking at some of the big guys, there's this policy that has created a barrier for us to probably venture into those places with respect to gaining experiences in terms of work, maybe education and internships. So it's like we don't have access to this, or even if we have, the access is limited. So how are we expected to develop that skills and know-how in order to help to triple the nuclear energy by 2050? So to me, if really we are serious about tripling the nuclear energy globally by 2050, then I think some of these policies have to be relaxed in order for us and generally globally, because I think the workforce cannot be gotten from only maybe one or two continents. It has to be global and diverse. So some of these policies have to be relaxed for everyone to get access to these skills and technology know-how.
Amazing, amazing. Elham. Tasharafna. I'd like to show off a couple words of Arabic here. I knew very, very little about the UAE. I had the honor of interviewing His Excellency Mohammed Al Hamadi and starting to become acquainted. Around the world, again, in an environment, particularly in the maybe decadent West, where there's the opportunity to broil in this anxiety and not take advantage of the opportunities that we have as young people, are incredible, sharp minds that can take up so much information and have so much potential. Learning a lot about the UAE context has been very inspiring. The role of women in this sector, I think there's a lot of stereotypes in the outside world about the role of women within the Arab world. It's been really inspiring and remarkable to meet yourself and some of your female colleagues and to see the participation and the level of expertise and really equal levels of expertise within the sector. So tell me a little bit about your journey. This is a new nuclear country. What was of interest to you to go into this sector? And just a little bit about your career, how you've developed here.
Sure. First of all, thank you for arranging this panel where myself and the other advocates could meet and exchange information and knowledge. I am very pleased to be part of this panel. Second, regarding your question, I was very passionate about clean energy and renewable resources. And I remember I was in high school when I saw the advertisements about ENIC Baraka plant program and about the scholarships programs. I knew back then that I wanted to be part of this program, that it's unique and it's first of its kind in the Middle East and the Arab world. I was supported by my father, first of all, my family, my country, our leaders who believe and trust in their youth, who keep supporting women empowerment in every different industry or role in the country. So I went to the United States and I did my nuclear energy, nuclear engineering degree with ENIC, and I came back to work as a reactor operator, where I felt very proud about myself being part of this great program. Having Baraka nuclear power plant in the UAE means decarbonizing the nation and having a positive impact on the planet. So in Baraka, we are currently having 4 units. 3 of them are commercially operating. The 4th one will come into operation hopefully by next year. And with that, we will deliver 25% of the UAE's electricity demand, which means reducing around 22 tons of the carbon emissions annually. That's a great impact into the energy sector and into decarbonizing the planet. I am very pleased to be part of this project, and I'm looking to grow. Actually, I'm looking into growing the energy sector globally, hopefully, which will help reduce or the impact of the climate change. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, back to Paris, and I think we'll try and get through the lineup one more time in the time we have left. So Paris, the internet has permitted, I guess, fringe communities there's a saying from Margaret Mead, this anthropologist, I think she's American, that only a small group of committed and passionate individuals can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. The individuals in this movement are geographically quite scattered. The internet allows people with these interests to come together, and in a humorous way, we see that in Comic-Con conventions where people might dress up as Harry Potter characters. They might be quite odd, but still be able to come together and feel a little more normal. I'm being a little bit self-deprecating as a member of this rather unusual community, but as a global coordinator of this movement, connecting us all, I just want to learn a little bit more about how you do that, how you do that challenge, how you brought us together. What are some of the tools? What are the cheat codes to accomplishing what you and your organization have accomplished?
Well, I gotta do a shout out to WhatsApp and Zoom because it kept us going through COVID. And I mean, we have a WhatsApp group for every location, and social media, like Izzy mentioned earlier, like everybody can use it, everybody's on it, there's no borders, you can interact with anybody. And thanks to ENEC and the Net Zero Nuclear Initiative, we get to have nearly 50 delegates from 22 different nations all together. And I mean, I've seen Will for the last year on the internet, and Taya, I've met her a couple times, but in Grace meeting her in person, like, it's great to see people actually in real life and engage with them. And so, to your question, you're asking us what was the question again?
You've sort of answered it. Again,
how do I do it?
In terms of some of the cheat codes, the way to bring this together. I guess in the interest of time, I think you answered it. We'll move on. We'll move on to Thea. I think there's an interesting phenomenon in the U.S. in particular, where the tax code is arranged in such a way that wealthy individuals can set up foundations and can really fund a vibrant nonprofit sector. In the U.S., these environmental NGOs have annual revenues that are greater than the GDP of quite a few nations in the world. In Europe, the context is a little bit different, I think, in terms of the way the tax codes work, and things are more probably small donation funded. So I have a little bit more respect for Greenpeace, as much as I hate to say it, in Europe, because maybe it is more of a grassroots movement. You at Replanet are working on building that grassroots movement. Tell us a little bit more about how you do that, how you're working on sort of building that base across an organization that's now not just in Europe, but spanning continents.
Yeah, you're correct. Like in most European countries, you don't get any tax deductions for donating money to NGOs. So you really rely on like membership fees, monthly donors from individuals. In some countries, we get government grants. Then we get, of course, luckily we have some foundations that have funded us locally and internationally. And right now we're trying to build like digital fundraising so that we can get donations from just people all over the world for our campaigns, just like the Greenpeace is doing. And just the funding out there available for anti-nuclear organizations is so huge compared to what there is for kind of pro-technology environmental organizations. So we're still trying to diversify and we're looking for foundations who are willing to take that, and funders who are willing to take that kind of risk. But we really rely on the donations from the general public, and that's our plan. And luckily, our supporters are very loyal. They're very enthusiastic about us, and because we're the only option there as a pro-nuclear, pro-gene editing, pro-precision fermentation environmental movement. So if there's like science people out there who believe in these technologies and there are solutions, not problems, then ours is the only environmental movement for them. So we do have, yet it's still small, but it's a very loyal and enthusiastic supporter base.
Awesome. Will, I had pretensions of mentoring you, and those pretensions have disappeared again, just seeing how active you are. Again, gumption is the word that comes to mind. As you, I hate to say the word grow up, as you age, there's no friendly way to say it, there's no polite language, but as you grow older, and I think as you become an example for other youth advocates in Australia, what are some of the lessons you think you'll be able to share with them as you continue to sort of build Nuclear for Australia as a movement?
Well, I think the main thing is to be brave and to take initiative, and that's certainly what I've found through my experience. It does take a lot of bravery to advocate for quite a polarising issue like nuclear energy, and I'd say that I've copped it myself in Australia, having to be there as one of the only advocates for nuclear energy in Australia. So, well, it certainly does require a lot of bravery, but I think the end result of it is it's much greater than that, and it's worth taking and making that sacrifice, because I think the potential and what I've been able to find in how we've really now got a lot of public support and momentum behind nuclear energy is a lot of these efforts are starting to pay off. We're starting to see nuclear energy enter the mainstream media conversation. It is being discussed at dinner tables around Australia. It is becoming an issue that people really do care about. So I think these individual efforts, regardless of your age, regardless of your access to resources, I'm telling you right now, I've done this with access only to my piggy bank, really. So I've got my phone and I've got the limited funds I need to, maybe pay for a Canva Premium subscription. And the impact I hope I've been able to make with that, I think is really quite profound in Australia. So I think my advice to any young person in Australia is to look at the resources you have available to you, realise that if you are able to use them in the right way, that you are able to make an impact. And the last thing I would say, and this is just a broader commentary on advocacy with youth, is I think it's one thing to advocate and make clear the problems in our society, whether that's mainly with climate change or also with our energy security issues. But decision makers are not able to act when you just tell them the problem. You need to also present solutions to them. So if you want decision makers to act, you need to be presenting them the solutions so that they can embrace them and act upon those solutions that you're providing them. Whether you're advocating for renewables like solar panels, wind turbines, or nuclear. You just can't say there's an issue with climate change or there's an issue with energy security. You need to be able to propose options for our decision makers to embrace if you want to have action and if you want some of those issues to eventually be resolved. So that's my feedback. And I also think the important thing is to be able to reach out to people here, to network, to listen and hear from the perspectives of many people, whether they agree with your opinion or whether they don't, because ultimately that will help you make your way in this space and make sure you're advocating for solutions which will eventually have a positive impact on the world.
I often refer to myself as an anti-shill because I sacrifice income by working a few less shifts in the emergency department. It's an inspiring story, because of the authentic motivation. But at the same time, I don't think there's any reason anyone on the stage should be, especially who's not a doctor and doesn't have a high income as a result of that, should be sort of a starving activist here. I think, one of the uniting features of these groups is that, and what gives us our freedom and dynamism in terms of our communications is that we don't accept industry donations, and therefore some of the conservatism of the industry's communications culture is not present here. There's the dynamism. But I would just, make a plea as individuals, if you would like to support some of the amazing people and organizations here, and I'm sure Will could do a lot more if he wasn't relying on his piggy bank. So we need to find creative ways. I'm looking at this audience, and I think it'd be beautiful if everyone here could make a commitment as individuals to find a way to support the folks on this stage. shameless pitch, but. Okay, so we're short on time here, but I think we're still gonna try and work through the rest of the panel. Grace, Miss America, I saw you speak at the Atlantic Council not too long ago, and you're an excellent speaker. I imagine that's part of why you're selected as one of your attributes. I'm interested in sort of how you've developed that speaking ability and any pearls you could share with the rest of the group in terms of communications.
Lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. You know, I honestly, like, this is something that Miss America and preparing for the competition taught me my communication skills. Unfortunately, engineering degrees don't really include a lot of communication classes, so I had to kind of find some other resources to pursue those opportunities. And honestly, you know, in terms of how I really developed speech writing and everything, in terms of how I communicate things and how I work with young people and politicians and nursing home residents and all of these different groups of people from different backgrounds, is I just sit there and I'm going to say something that I don't mean in a bad way, but I remember sitting at these conferences as a young person who was like not fully committed to nuclear, and I was like, this is a boring lecture. Like, I'm not gonna lie, okay? So sometimes we don't always have a super engaging presentation, and it's really a focus on the storytelling. So that's the strategy that I always take. As young people are exposed to all these different facts and all of these different presentations of information on a daily basis. And let's be honest, we grew up in a generation of fake news. We don't know what's real, what's not. We have to go through and do extensive research. So I take a strategy of connecting emotionally through storytelling, through my experiences as a human being, because nuclear is a very, very technical industry, but it's science that delivers the plants, but it's the people who run them. It's the teams that work together, that collaborate, that promote questioning attitudes, that make these plants produce energy. And without that, you know, we don't have the nuclear industry. It's everybody sitting in this room that creates that, and it's truly, truly incredible. So when it comes to that communication, facts are great. Lectures are incredible. You know, there's ways to present education in a fun and entertaining and a little bit more sparkly and glamorous manner, I think.
So Eduardo, a generation or two before your own made the calamitous decision to exit nuclear energy in Italy. That has set you up as one of the biggest importers of nuclear electricity from France. But you're part of a new generation, and I'd be interested in hearing from you in terms of attitudes in your cohort towards nuclear, and the work that you do in terms of the communications with your age group, with, I guess, people that are just entering university or even high schoolers.
So yeah, Italy is a very confused country when it comes to nuclear energy. I always say that Italy was a nuclear nation, is a nuclear nation, and will be a nuclear nation even if it doesn't know it. We have one of the best engineering schools in the world, the Politecnico di Milano. I'm from Milan, and they create one of the best engineers. Like, there's no power plant in the world that operates without an Italian person. Like Enrico Fermi. I mean, Enrico Fermi was an Italian. So the public opinion on nuclear energy is also changing very quickly. Like 2 years ago, if it happened to say nuclear like imagine a room like that in Italy. If you have them to be saying nuclear, the entire room would have become silent completely, because they would have looked at you like, you said nuclear. Oh my God. Now the things are changing very quickly, and I think this is because, first of all, we had the Russian-Ukraine war that, of course, increased the prices of the bills, and so we experienced high bills, and we said, maybe we should work on that. So that's very important, but also because people are getting informed very, very slowly, but are getting informed. Italy is one of the countries in the OECD that has one of the lowest scientific literacy scores. So it's not easy to work in a country that doesn't know the difference between, the order of magnitude, the difference between risk and danger. So it's very difficult to work in a country like Italy. But the opinions, especially between the young people, is changing quickly. And I would like to share one message with all the young people that will listen to this or everyone here. So think about that. It took 10,000 years to evolve from an agricultural-based society to an industrial-based society. It took 300 years from the invention of the steam engine to become what we are today. Imagine what a 1 times more energy-dense source can transform our world into. Like, think about that. If nuclear power is not developed yet as it should be, if we really can unlock the potential of nuclear power, what can we do if in 300 years we become 8 billion people thanks to the steam engine? imagine how many incredible things we can do with nuclear energy. And this also means not only that we can go into space, we can cure people with radiomedicine, we can generate clean energy, but also that we can wish to live in a future where everyone has more energy, is abundant. And this goes exactly against the old way of thinking of the old environmentalism of the 70s that said, we need to degrow, we need to consume less. This goes exactly against. And I think this is a fantastic way of imagining the future, a future with more energy for all, that is clean, it's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. It just goes against the old way of thinking, and I really hope that more and more young people will start thinking like that. And nuclear energy, can be really the key, I think.
Awesome. Waiting for a short round of applause there. Okay, Abu Bakr, this demographic advantage comes with some risk in terms of the development of the incredible human resources present in Africa. I come from Canada. We are a nation of immigrants, and we are responsible for a significant amount of brain drain from the developing world. It's a huge asset for us, but it's a huge cost to countries as they develop. As we move forward, as more and more people study nuclear engineering, perhaps abroad, how do we combat this phenomenon of brain drain so that Africa can take advantage of its own youth and their expertise and their human resources?
Yeah, I think it's a key. The youth should sustain the passion, first of all. I think passion is everything. The passion will keep them going and to where they want to go. And I think one important thing we should realize, not only in Africa, is globally, the gap between we, the coming up ones, and the ones at the top. I think there's a huge gap in terms of age and also knowledge. I've said that severally. So I think the young guys should pay attention. Learn from them, and importantly, learn very well, because we're seeing them now and we're taking it for granted. In a very short time, they are tired or they are no more. And it is then that we realize the importance of these people. So we should pay attention and learn from them. It will save us a lot in the future. Thank you.
See, the applause also gives me a little moment to think of my next question. So, Ilham, I'm thinking broadly about some of the characteristics of the Emiratis that I've met. Very humble, very polite, but you have an extraordinary amount of expertise to share with the world. The West looks to the Emirates as an example, frankly, in a time in which Europe and the USA and Canada's doing pretty well, I guess, but have really struggled. The story of Baraka is incredibly inspiring. I feel like I might be putting you on the spot because of some of those attributes of again, the humility that I've seen, but I think there's a lot that you have, not just in terms of your expertise and experience within this program, but also within your own experience in professional development. You have lessons to offer others here. What might one or two of those be, hearing from our advocates, messages of inspiration that you could offer, particularly to those of us from the West?
Okay, let me think about something. So I would advise them to keep believing in themselves, to keep sharing their messages. Whatever knowledge you guys have, keep sharing these knowledge with others. Keep educating people to raise awareness amongst not just youth, but even your parents, the people you work with, the people you see during conferences, during events, and especially here during COP. This is the best place where we could share our experiences and knowledge about how important nuclear energy is and how beneficial it is into tackling the climate change and reducing the decarbonization. It is an important major source of energy that we need to rely on to achieve the net zero nuclear.
It's incredible. It's incredible when I saw the number of names on this panel, and accepted the task of moderating such an incredible, diverse, exciting, dynamic group. I thought, how on earth am I going to draw out the stories that I so desperately want to hear? And it's not just the job of the moderator. You guys have done an extraordinary job, I think, representing yourselves, representing the diversity of yourselves as individuals, but the diverse context from which you come. We have just about a minute left. So I'd like to sort of open the floor. I'll let one or two of you speak and talk about. I could use a moment of applause to think about it. I'm sort of at a bit of a loss from having heard from everybody. Thank you.
I'll jump in quick. So I just want to say one thing that I love about this industry is how welcoming and inviting it is. We have seen people from all different walks of life come in, and one thing that I've learned throughout this year of being Miss America and seeing nuclear power plants in different countries and all these different sort of cultures is, one, we always prioritize being on time. Love that. Okay, and two, the priority of safety. That's incredible. That's incredible. But what I ask is that we never stop learning. Stay curious, stay exploring. It's something that's just in our blood. We should never stop learning.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think my message is generally to the energy industry. I think the market is there. For example, Nigeria, the energy demand is about 30,000 megawatt. And currently we have only 11,000 megawatt capacity. So the market is there. Renewable energy cannot produce it alone. So I think it shouldn't be like a race between us. Everyone should put in what they have in the pot. And I think together is better.
Beautiful, folks. That is a wrap. Again, as a 41-year-old now, I'm happy that this ended with someone younger than myself. So I'm going to leave it there and not wax on. Thank you for your attention. And again, I just thought of it in the moment, but I really do encourage everybody in this room to figure out how you can support as individuals the people and organizations up on this stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.